There are three things that can destroy a woman completely: losing the person who raised her, losing the man who promised to protect her, and losing both on the same day. Maya Richardson lost all three in 24 hours. Her father died on a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m. By Wednesday afternoon, her husband was kissing another woman at the courthouse, signing papers that erased their marriage like it never existed. But here's what nobody knew. Not her cheating husband Marcus. Not his mistress Vanessa, who'd been sleeping in Maya's bed for 8 months. Not even Maya herself, standing there 6 months pregnant, clutching her father's old jacket that still smelled like Irish spring soap and coffee. The man they'd all dismissed as just a janitor had left behind something that would turn their entire world upside down in less than 3 hours. Something that would make Vanessa's victory smile crack like glass. Something that would make Marcus realize he'd just made the most expensive mistake of his entire life. Maya's father, Robert Richardson, had mopped floors at Riverside Elementary for 35 years. He'd worked double shifts on Christmas. He'd eaten rice and beans for dinner while Maya got ballet lessons. He'd driven a 1987 Honda Civic with duct tape holding the passenger door shut. Everyone saw a humble janitor. No one saw the truth. No one except his attorney Harold Chun, who is sitting in his office right now, checking his watch, waiting for the exact moment Robert had specified in his instructions. The exact moment everything would change. But let me take you back 24 hours earlier to the moment Maya's world first started crumbling. Her father's hospital room was cold. Too cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and never really leaves. Maya held his hand, feeling how light it had become, like he was already halfway gone. Marcus was supposed to be there. He'd promised. But his chair sat empty, and when Maya called, it went straight to voicemail. She didn't know he was 3 floors down in the parking garage, tongue down Vanessa's throat, planning their new life together. "Baby girl," her father whispered, his voice barely there. "Listen to me carefully." His fingers trembled as he pressed a sealed envelope into her palm. "When I'm gone, you open this. Not before. You understand?" Maya nodded, tears streaming. "You are never alone, Maya. You are never poor. You are never powerless. I made sure of that." Those were his last words. At 6:47 a.m., the monitor flatlined and Maya's scream echoed through the hallway. A scream that said everything. A scream that said goodbye to the only person who'd ever truly loved her unconditionally. Marcus showed up 2 hours later, smelling like someone else's perfume, mumbling excuses about traffic. Maya was too broken to notice, too shattered to see the guilt written all over his face, or the way he couldn't look her in the eyes. She buried her face in his chest, needing comfort, needing someone to tell her it would be okay. He patted her back mechanically, like he was comforting a stranger. Like he'd already left her in his mind. The funeral was small. Her father didn't have many friends, or so everyone thought. Just some co-workers from the school, a few neighbors, Harold the attorney sitting in the back pew looking sad and strange, like he knew something no one else did. Maya stood by the grave in the black dress Marcus had complained was too expensive, watching them lower her father into the ground. She knelt down, dirt under her fingernails, placing white roses on the casket. Her baby kicked inside her. A baby that would never meet its grandfather. Never hear his laugh. Never feel his unconditional love. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you on the day you needed them most? Would you have seen it coming, or would you have been as blind as Maya? Drop your answer in the comments. Marcus drove her home in silence. Vanessa had texted him 17 times. He kept his phone face down, but Maya saw it light up. Saw the name V flash across the screen. She was too exhausted to ask, too numb to care. She went to bed at 8 p.m., emotionally destroyed, physically drained, clutching that sealed envelope her father had given her but unable to open it. Unable to face whatever final words he'd left behind. Marcus waited until she fell asleep. Then he packed a bag, left a note on the kitchen counter, and walked out of their apartment for the last time. The note said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. The papers will be delivered tomorrow." By 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, Maya woke up to an empty apartment and a legal document sliding under her door. Divorce papers. She read them 3 times, not believing the words. Her hand instinctively went to her belly, to the baby growing inside her. Marcus wanted a divorce. Today, the day after her father's funeral. He wanted to end their marriage while the dirt on her father's grave was still fresh, while her heart was still bleeding from losing the one man who'd never abandoned her. She called him. He didn't answer. She called again and again. Finally, on the 7th try, he picked up. "Marcus, what is this? What are you doing?" Her voice cracked, desperate, confused. "I'm moving on, Maya. I should have done this months ago. We're not right for each other. We never were." His voice was cold, detached, like he was canceling a subscription, not ending a marriage. "You're 6 months pregnant with our baby. My dad just died yesterday. How can you?" "Sign the papers, Maya. Make this easy." Click. He hung up. Maya collapsed onto the floor, the phone still in her hand, the envelope from her father lying on the coffee table, staring at her like it held answers she wasn't ready for. But she couldn't open it. Not yet. Not while her world was falling apart in real time. Not while the man she'd loved for 5 years was ripping her heart out and walking away without a second glance. At 2:15 p.m. that same day, Maya stood outside the county courthouse, her father's jacket wrapped around her shoulders because it was the only thing keeping her warm, keeping her sane. She'd followed Marcus there, needing answers, needing to understand why he was doing this now, of all times. And that's when she saw them, Marcus and Vanessa, standing at the top of the courthouse steps. He was in a suit. She was in white. Not a wedding dress, but close enough. They were smiling, laughing. He leaned down and kissed her long and deep, the kind of kiss that said, "This is my future now." Vanessa looked over Marcus's shoulder and locked eyes with Maya. And she smiled. A slow, cruel, victorious smile that said, "I won." Maya felt something break inside her that couldn't be fixed. Something deeper than heartbreak. Deeper than betrayal. It was the shattering of every belief she'd ever held about love, loyalty, and the goodness of people. She turned and walked away, her vision blurred by tears, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her father's jacket closed. She walked 15 blocks back to her apartment in the freezing cold, 6 months pregnant, sobbing so hard that strangers stopped to ask if she was okay. When she got home, she locked the door, slid down to the floor, and finally picked up the envelope her father had given her. Her hands were still trembling. Her heart was pounding. She could barely breathe. But she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter in her father's shaky handwriting, and a business card for Harold Chun, attorney at law. The letter started with 4 words that didn't make sense. "You are a billionaire now." What was her father talking about? What did that even mean? And why did those words feel like they were about to change everything? The letter in Maya's hands didn't feel real. The words looked like English, but her brain couldn't process them, couldn't make them make sense, because what her father had written was impossible. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I need you to know the truth I've kept from you your entire life. I am not the man you thought I was. I am not just a janitor. I haven't been for a very long time. I am the founder and majority shareholder of Richardson Global Technologies, a private equity firm worth $5.2 billion. I own 87% of it, which means as of the moment I take my last breath, you own 87% of it. You are now worth approximately $4.5 billion. I know this is shocking. I know you have questions. Call Harold. He will explain everything. But Maya, listen to me carefully. I lived the way I did, humble and simple, because I wanted you to grow up understanding that character matters more than cash. That love is worth more than luxury. That integrity is the only treasure that never loses value. I wanted you to see me as a father, not a bank account. I wanted you to love me for who I was, not what I had. And you did. You loved me when I had nothing to give but time and attention. That's how I knew I raised you right. Now you have wealth beyond imagination. Use it wisely. Use it kindly. And never, ever let anyone make you feel small again. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. I made sure of that. I love you forever, Dad. Maya read it 3 times. Her hands shook so badly the paper rattled. This couldn't be real. Her dad was a janitor. He mopped floors. He drove a car held together with duct tape and hope. He ate leftovers for dinner while she got new school clothes. There was no way. No possible way. But the business card was real. Heavy card stock. Embossed lettering. Harold Chun, Senior Partner, Chun and Associates, Wealth Management and Estate Law. A phone number. An address in the financial district. The fancy part of the city her father never went to. Or so she thought. She called the number with shaking fingers. It rang twice. Harold Chun speaking. His voice was calm, professional, warm. Mr. Chun, this is Maya Richardson. My father, Robert Richardson, he passed away yesterday, and he left me this letter, and I don't understand. Maya. Harold's voice softened immediately. I've been waiting for your call. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was an extraordinary man. Can you come to my office? We have a lot to discuss, and it's better done in person. Can you be here in an hour? Maya looked down at herself, still in funeral clothes, still tear-stained and broken. Yes. I can be there. She took an Uber she couldn't afford to the address on the card. The building was glass and steel, 40 stories tall, the kind of place where people in $1,000 suits made million-dollar decisions. She felt so small walking through the lobby, so out of place. But the receptionist smiled warmly and said, Ms. Richardson, Mr. Chun is expecting you. Top floor. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, Harold was waiting. Mid-60s. Kind eyes. Expensive suit. He shook her hand gently. Come. Seat. Let me explain everything. If you're feeling this story in your soul, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. For the next hour, Harold walked Maya through the impossible truth. Her father had started Richardson Global Technologies 30 years ago, fresh out of business school, with a single brilliant investment strategy that turned thousands into millions, then millions into billions. He'd stayed completely private. No press. No public profile. No social media. He'd hidden his wealth so thoroughly that even the IRS had to work hard to find him. And he'd done it all while pretending to be a janitor at Riverside Elementary, a job he'd taken specifically so he could be close to Maya's school, so he could see her every day, so he could walk her home. Why? Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. Why would he live like that? Why would he let people treat him like he was nothing? Harold smiled sadly, because he wanted you to love him for who he was, not what he had. He wanted you to grow up grounded, humble, kind. He was terrified that wealth would corrupt you, spoil you, turn you into someone shallow and cruel. So he gave you the greatest gift a parent can give, a childhood built on love, not money. And Maya, it worked. You are exactly the woman he hoped you'd become. The will was ironclad. For $0.5 billion transferred directly to Maya. No conditions. No strings. Just a trust fund for her unborn child, structured so that even if Maya died, the baby would be taken care of forever. Harold slid a folder across the desk. Bank statements. Investment portfolios. Property deeds. Her father-owned buildings. Companies. Land. Art. Things Maya didn't even have names for. This is yours now, Harold said gently. All of it. Maya stared at the numbers. The commas. The zeros. It didn't feel real. It felt like a dream. A cruel joke. What do I do? She whispered. Whatever you want, Harold said. But first you grieve. You process. You take your time. And when you're ready, we'll talk about the future. Maya left Harold's office in a daze. She walked back outside into the cold afternoon air, and the world looked different. The same buildings. The same streets. But everything had shifted. She wasn't the broken, abandoned pregnant woman anymore. She was a billionaire. The word felt ridiculous in her mouth. Unreal. She pulled out her phone and stared at Marcus's number. Part of her wanted to call him. To scream. To tell him what he'd just walked away from. But another part of her, the part that sounded like her father, said, let him find out on his own. Let him live with what he's done. She went home. Locked the door. Made tea. Sat on the couch with her father's jacket wrapped around her shoulders. And for the first time since he died, she smiled. Not because of the money, but because she finally understood. Her father had spent 35 years teaching her the most important lesson of all, that she was valuable because of who she was, not what she had. That love wasn't transactional. That real worth couldn't be measured in dollars. And now, in the cruelest twist of fate, Marcus and Vanessa were about to learn that lesson the hardest way possible. But Maya didn't know that 3 weeks earlier, her father had made a phone call from his hospital bed. A phone call that would change everything. Harold had visited him one last time, and Robert, weak but sharp as ever, had said something that made Harold write furiously in his legal notebook. "Harold, I need you to listen carefully. My son-in-law is going to leave my daughter. I can see it. I've seen it for months. The way he looks at her. The way he pulls away. He's going to abandon her right when she needs him most. And when he does, I want you to make sure he knows exactly what he walked away from." Harold had frowned. "What do you mean?" Robert smiled, that sad, knowing smile of a father who sees too much. "I mean, I want you to send him a letter. After the will is read. After Maya knows the truth. I want you to send Marcus a letter explaining exactly how much money he just divorced. I want him to live with that knowledge every single day for the rest of his miserable life." Harold nodded slowly. "Consider it done." And now, sitting in his office 2 hours after Maya had left, Harold pulled out a pre-written letter, sealed in an envelope with Marcus's name on it. He checked the time. Maya had officially inherited everything 1 hour ago, which meant it was time. He dropped the letter in the mail. Marcus would receive it tomorrow morning, and when he opened it, his entire world would collapse. But that's not even the most devastating part. The most devastating part was what Vanessa was about to discover, and how her victory smile was about to turn into a scream of pure horror. What do you think her father's letter to Marcus said? And how do you think Marcus is going to react when he realizes what he's done? Marcus Carter had never felt more alive. For the first time in 5 years, he could breathe. No more pretending. No more suffocating marriage to a woman who talked about feelings and family and forever. No more playing house with someone who didn't excite him. He had Vanessa now. Beautiful, adventurous, exciting Vanessa who understood him, who wanted the same things, who didn't cry about dead parents or cling to old jackets that smelled like cheap soap. They were in Vanessa's apartment, celebrating. Champagne. Takeout. Freedom. "To us," Vanessa said, raising her glass, her eyes sparkling. "To finally be together without hiding." Marcus clinked his glass against hers and kissed her hard. This was right. This was what he deserved. Not some struggling life with a pregnant wife who worshipped a janitor father. He'd done the right thing. He'd chosen happiness. "I can't believe you actually went through with it," Vanessa laughed, curling into his chest. "I thought you'd chicken out." "Never," Marcus said confidently. "I'm done living a lie. Maya will be fine. She's tougher than she looks." Vanessa smiled, but something flickered in her eyes. Something cold. "Did she cry?" she asked casually. Too casually. Marcus hesitated. "Yeah, pretty hard, actually. But she'll move on. People always do." Vanessa's smile widened. Good. She needed to learn that holding on to the past doesn't get you anywhere. Her dad was a janitor, Marcus. A janitor. Can you imagine? And she acted like he was some kind of saint. Marcus laughed, uncomfortable but agreeing. Yeah. It was pathetic how much she worshipped him. The guy mopped floors for a living and she treated him like royalty. They didn't know that across town, Maya was sitting in her apartment, staring at a bank statement with so many zeros it didn't look real. They didn't know that the pathetic janitor they were mocking had just made his daughter one of the wealthiest women in the country. They didn't know that in less than 12 hours, Marcus's mailbox would deliver a letter that would haunt him for the rest of his life. But for now, they celebrated. Oblivious. Arrogant. Convinced they'd won. The next morning, Marcus woke up to the sound of Vanessa making coffee. Life felt good. Simple. Free. He checked his phone. A few missed calls from his mom. A text from his buddy congratulating him on finally getting out. He smiled. See? Everyone understood. Everyone knew he'd made the right choice. He got dressed, kissed Vanessa goodbye, and headed to his apartment to grab some more of his stuff. Maya would probably be at work or hiding somewhere crying. Either way, he wouldn't have to see her. But when he got to the apartment, the door was locked. His key didn't work. He frowned and knocked. No answer. He called Maya. Straight to voicemail. Annoyed, he went downstairs to check his mailbox. Bills. Junk. And a thick cream-colored envelope with no return address. Fancy paper. The kind lawyers used. He opened it. The letter inside was typed on law firm letterhead. Chun and Associates. He didn't recognize the name. He started reading, and with every sentence, his face went paler. His hands started shaking. His breath caught in his throat. Dear Mr. Carter, my name is Harold Chun, and I represent the estate of Robert Richardson. It is my duty to inform you that Mr. Richardson passed away 2 days ago, leaving behind an estate valued at approximately $5.2 billion. As per his will, 87% of said estate, approximately $4.5 billion, has been transferred entirely to his daughter, Maya Richardson. I am writing to inform you of this because Mr. Richardson specifically requested that you be made aware of the wealth you divorced. He wanted you to know exactly what you walked away from. He wanted you to live with that knowledge. Maya is now a billionaire. The child she is carrying, your biological child, will grow up with every advantage imaginable. You, however, will not be part of that world. You made your choice. Mr. Richardson wanted to make sure you understood the consequences. Sincerely, Harold Chun, attorney at law. Marcus read it 3 times. 4 times. His heart was pounding so hard he thought he might pass out. This couldn't be real. It had to be a joke. A sick, twisted joke. Robert Richardson was a janitor. He mopped floors. He drove a car from the 1980s. He was nobody. But the letterhead was real. The law firm was real. Marcus pulled out his phone and Googled Richardson Global Technologies. The results made his stomach drop. Private equity firm. Founded 1995. Estimated value, $5.2 billion. Founder, Robert Richardson. There were no photos, no public profiles, just financial reports and investment records that confirmed everything the letter said. Would you have done what Marcus did? Would you have left or would you have stayed? Tell me in the comments, because I need to know. Marcus's knees buckled. He sat down hard on the lobby floor, the letter crumpling in his fist. He'd divorced a billionaire. He'd walked away from $4.5 billion. He'd left Maya pregnant with his child the day after her father died, and that father had been secretly one of the richest men in the country. His mind raced. The apartment, the car, the life he'd thought was so small and suffocating. It was all a lie, a test, and he'd failed spectacularly. Oh my God, he whispered. Oh my God, what have I done? He called Vanessa, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. V, we need to talk. Right now. What's wrong? She asked, annoyed. You sound weird. Just come to my apartment. Now. Please. She showed up 20 minutes later, irritated, expecting another emotional breakdown about Maya. But when she saw Marcus's face, pale and sweating, clutching a letter like it was a death sentence, her irritation turned to concern. What happened? Marcus handed her the letter without a word. Vanessa read it. Once. Twice. And then she screamed. It wasn't a normal scream. It was the sound of someone realizing they'd just destroyed their entire future. A raw, guttural, animalistic scream that echoed through the apartment hallway. No. No, 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 no. She grabbed Marcus by the shoulders, shaking him. Tell me this is fake. Tell me this is some kind of sick joke. Tell me. Marcus just stared at her, his face blank, his mind shattered. It's real, he whispered. I checked. It's all real. Her dad was a billionaire, and I left her. I divorced her. I walked away. Vanessa's face went from shock to horror to rage in seconds. You idiot, she screamed, shoving him hard. You left a billionaire. You divorced a billionaire for me. She paced the room like a caged animal, her hands in her hair, her voice shrill and panicked. Do you have any idea what you've done? What we've done? We could have had everything. We could have been set for life. And you threw it away. You threw it away. Marcus said nothing. There was nothing to say. Vanessa spun around, her eyes wild. We have to fix this. We have to go back. You have to apologize. You have to. She's not going to take me back, Marcus said flatly. I left her the day after her dad died. I divorced her while she was 6 months pregnant. I married you at the courthouse while she was still grieving. There's no coming back from that. Vanessa stared at him, realization dawning like a nightmare. So you're telling me, she said slowly, her voice shaking, that we gave up billions of dollars for nothing? Marcus nodded. Vanessa let out another scream, grabbed a lamp, and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. I hate you, she shrieked. I hate you so much. And that's when Marcus realized something even worse. Vanessa didn't love him. She never had. She'd loved the idea of taking him away from Maya. She'd loved the idea of winning. But now that the prize was worthless, now that Maya was the one with all the power and all the money, Vanessa looked at him like he was garbage. Like he was nothing. Just like he'd made Maya feel. And the universe had a cruel sense of justice. Because at that moment, Marcus understood exactly what he'd done. And there was no taking it back. But here's the thing. Maya wasn't even thinking about Marcus anymore. She was thinking about something her father had written at the bottom of his letter. Something that made her smile through her tears. Something that changed everything. What did her father's final message say? And what was Maya about to do that would change her life forever? Maya sat in her apartment, her father's letter spread out on the coffee table, reading the last paragraph over and over again. The part she'd missed the first time because she'd been too shocked to process it. The part that made everything make sense. Maya, I know you're wondering why I lived the way I did. Why I kept this secret. The truth is, I was testing the world around you. I wanted to see who loved you for you and who would love you for money. I wanted to see if the man you married would stay when things got hard, or if he'd run the moment something shinier came along. Turns out I was right to worry. But baby girl, don't be sad. Be grateful. Because now you know the truth. Now you see people for who they really are. And that clarity, that knowledge, is worth more than all the money in the world. Use your wealth to build the life you deserve. Surround yourself with people who loved you when you had nothing. And never, ever let someone like Marcus make you feel small again. You are extraordinary. You always have been. The money just proves what I already knew. You were born to do great things. I love you forever. Dad. Maya wiped her eyes and smiled. Her father had known. He'd seen it coming. And he'd made sure she'd be okay. More than okay. She picked up her phone and called Harold. I want to do something, she said, her voice steady for the first time in days. I want to start a foundation. In my dad's name. For single parents and their kids. Scholarships. Childcare. Support systems. Everything he gave me, I want to give to people who need it. Harold's voice warmed. Your father would be so proud. Let's make it happen. If this story is hitting you where it matters, subscribe to this channel. Because what happens next is going to blow your mind. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya threw herself into building the Robert Richardson Foundation. She worked with Harold and a team of advisors to structure it properly, legally, and powerfully. She donated $500 million as a starting endowment. She rented office space. She hired staff who understood the mission. People who'd grown up struggling just like her. People who knew what it meant to need help and not have it. The foundation launched quietly, but word spread fast. Within days, applications poured in. Single moms working 3 jobs. Dads raising kids alone. Families drowning in medical debt and broken dreams. Maya read every application herself. She cried over some of them. Laughed at others. Saw her own life reflected in their struggles. And she approved as many as she could. Thousands of families got help. Got hope. Got a second chance. The foundation became her purpose. Her healing. Her way of turning her pain into something beautiful. And every time she approved a scholarship or a grant, she whispered, "This one's for you, Dad." Meanwhile, Marcus and Vanessa's relationship imploded spectacularly. The woman who'd smiled victoriously at the courthouse, who'd whispered finally when Maya's father died, couldn't handle the reality of what they'd done. She blamed Marcus for everything. For being stupid. For not knowing. For ruining her life. They fought constantly. Screaming matches that ended with doors slamming and things breaking. Vanessa started seeing someone else within a week. Someone with money. Someone who could give her the life she thought she deserved. She left Marcus with nothing but a text that said, "You're pathetic. Lose my number." Marcus was alone. Truly alone. He'd lost Maya. Lost Vanessa. Lost his chance at a life he didn't even know was possible. He tried to reach out to Maya multiple times. Calls. Texts. Emails. All ignored. He even showed up at the apartment one night, drunk and desperate, begging her to talk to him. She didn't answer the door. She just called building security and had him removed. He was dead to her. And he knew it. One night, Marcus sat in his new apartment, a crappy studio in a bad part of town, because he couldn't afford anything better after the divorce legal fees. He pulled up Maya's social media. She'd gone private, but mutual friends still posted about her. Photos of her at foundation events, smiling, glowing, growing her baby bump with pride, looking happier than he'd ever seen her. And in every photo, she wore her father's old jacket. The one that smelled like Irish spring and coffee. The one that reminded her who she really was. Marcus stared at those photos for hours, hating himself. He'd had everything. A good woman. A baby on the way. A father-in-law who, despite being secretly wealthy, had treated him with respect and kindness. And he'd thrown it all away for a woman who didn't even want him once the money was gone. He opened his phone and typed out a message to Maya he'd never send. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I regret every single second of what I did. You deserve better. You deserved everything. And I was too blind and stupid to see it. I hope you and the baby have the most beautiful life. I hope you find someone who sees your worth. I'm sorry I wasn't that person." He stared at the message for 10 minutes. Then he deleted it. Because what was the point? Sorry I didn't fix anything. Sorry I didn't undo the betrayal. Sorry didn't bring back the life he destroyed. He put his phone down and cried for the first time since his mom died when he was 12. Cried for the man he used to be. Cried for the life he'd lost. Cried because he finally understood what Maya's father had been trying to teach him all along. That character matters more than anything. And Marcus had proven he had none. 3 months later, Maya gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Robin, after her father Robert. Robin Richardson came into the world surrounded by love, security, and a future brighter than most people could ever imagine. Maya held her daughter in the hospital room, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Your grandpa would have loved you so much. He made sure you'd never want for anything. But more than that, he made sure you'd know what real love looks like. I promise I'll teach you everything he taught me." Harold visited the hospital with a gift, a trust fund statement for baby Robin. $1 billion locked in until she turned 25, with distributions for education and necessities along the way. "Your father set this up years ago," Harold explained, "before you even got pregnant. He knew somehow that you'd have a child, and he wanted to make sure that child never had to struggle the way he did." Maya laughed through her tears. "He really did think of everything, didn't he?" Harold smiled. "He loved you more than life itself. Everything he did was for you." Marcus found out about the birth through Facebook. Someone had posted a photo Maya's friend had shared. Maya looked radiant, tired but glowing. The baby was perfect. He stared at the photo and felt a pain so deep it was physical. That was his daughter, his flesh and blood, and he'd never hold her, never knew her, never be her dad, because he'd chosen Vanessa over his family. He'd chosen lust over love. He'd chosen wrong. And now he'd spend the rest of his life knowing he had a daughter out there who would grow up thinking he abandoned her. Which he did, because that's exactly what happened. But Maya wasn't thinking about Marcus. She wasn't wasting energy on the man who'd betrayed her. She was thinking about her future. About Robin's future. About the foundation. About the life her father had built for her in secret, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice, for 35 years. And she made a decision that would honor him in the most powerful way possible. What was Maya about to do next? And how would it change not just her life, but the lives of thousands of others? 6 months after Robin was born, Maya stood in front of a crowd of 2,000 people at the grand opening of the Robert Richardson Community Center. It was a massive building in the heart of the city's poorest neighborhood, the neighborhood where her father had grown up before he made his fortune. The center had everything: a daycare, a job training program, a free health clinic, a library, computer labs, and a commercial kitchen that taught culinary skills. It cost $150 million to build. Maya hadn't blinked. She stood at the podium, Robin in a carrier strapped to her chest, and looked out at the faces staring back at her. Single moms, struggling dads, kids who needed hope, people who looked like her father once did, people who deserved a chance. "My father taught me that wealth isn't about what you have," Maya said, her voice strong and clear. It's about what you give. He spent 35 years pretending to be someone he wasn't because he wanted me to grow up understanding that love, character, and kindness are the only things that really matter. This center is his legacy. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure people remember him not as a billionaire, but as a man who cared. The crowd erupted in applause. People cried. People cheered. And Maya felt her father's presence so strongly it was like he was standing right beside her, his hand on her shoulder, whispering, "You did good, baby girl. You did real good." After the event, reporters swarmed her. They wanted to know her story. How a janitor became a billionaire in secret. How his daughter inherited everything. How she was changing the world. Maya answered every question with grace and honesty. She didn't hide. She didn't shy away. She owned her story, and people loved her for it. What would you do if you suddenly inherited billions? Would you use it the way Maya did, or would you do something different? Drop your answer in the comments because I'm curious. Within a year, the Robert Richardson Foundation became one of the most impactful charitable organizations in the country. It gave out $300 million in scholarships, grants, and direct aid. It helped 50,000 families. It built 3 more community centers in different cities. It lobbied for policy changes that protected single parents and low-income families. Maya became the face of compassionate wealth. The woman who used her pain to heal others. The woman who turned betrayal into purpose. She was invited to speak at conferences, on podcasts, on news shows. Everyone wanted to know her secret. How she stayed so grounded despite having billions. How she didn't let the money change her. Her answer was always the same. I watched my father live on $30,000 a year while secretly being worth billions. He didn't let money define him. He let love define him. I'm just doing what he taught me. People respected her. I admired her. I loved her. And for the first time in her life, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Doing exactly what she was meant to do. She wasn't a broken, abandoned pregnant woman anymore. She was Maya Richardson, philanthropist, mother, and living proof that pain can become power if you let it. But Marcus's life went in the opposite direction. He lost his job 6 months after the divorce. Too distracted, too depressed, too angry at himself to focus. He bounced between temp jobs and gig work, barely making rent. He watched Maya's rise from a distance through social media posts and news articles, and every update felt like a knife to the chest. She was thriving. She was happy. She was everything he'd thrown away. And he was nothing. Ako shonaritale. The guy who divorced a billionaire and lost everything. His family stopped talking to him. His mom was so disgusted by what he'd done that she told him not to come home for Thanksgiving. You abandoned your pregnant wife the day after her father died, she'd said coldly. I didn't raise you to be that kind of man. Don't call me until you figure out how to live with yourself. His friends distanced themselves too. Nobody wanted to be associated with a guy who'd made the worst decision in human history. He became a joke. A meme. Don't pull a Marcus became shorthand for making catastrophically bad life choices. One night, Marcus sat alone in his apartment, scrolling through photos of Maya at a foundation gala. She was wearing an elegant black dress, holding Robin, who was now a toddler with her grandfather's eyes. Maya looked so happy, so free, so untouchable. And Marcus realized something that broke him all over again. She didn't need him. She didn't miss him. She didn't even think about him. He was a footnote in her story, a lesson learned, a mistake corrected, and that hurt more than anything else, because it meant he truly didn't matter. He never had. He thought about reaching out one more time, writing a letter, apologizing properly, begging for a chance to meet his daughter, but he knew it was pointless. He'd burned that bridge so thoroughly there was nothing left but ash. So he did the only thing he could. He lived with it. He woke up every day knowing he'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. He went to bed every night haunted by the choice he'd made. And he wondered if he'd ever stop hating himself. Spoiler, he wouldn't. Meanwhile, Maya met someone new. Not someone rich. Not someone flashy. Someone kind. His name was Daniel, and he was a teacher at Riverside Elementary, the school where her father had worked. They met at a foundation event honoring her dad's memory. Daniel had been one of the kids who remembered Mr. Rob, the janitor who always had candy in his pocket and a smile on his face. Your dad was my hero, Daniel told her, his eyes sincere. He used to help me with my math homework after school. I was failing, and he sat with me every day for 3 months until I got it. He didn't have to, but he did. That's the kind of man he was. Maya's heart melted. They started talking, then dating, then falling in love. Daniel didn't care about her money. He cared about her heart. He loved Robin like she was his own. He honored her father's memory without being asked. And slowly, carefully, Maya let herself believe in love again. Not the shallow, selfish love Marcus had offered. Real love, the kind her father had modeled. The kind that stayed when things got hard. The kind that showed up. Daniel proposed on the anniversary of her father's death at his grave, with Robin holding a bouquet of white roses. "Your dad taught me what kind of man I should be," Daniel said, tears in his eyes. "And I want to spend the rest of my life proving I learned the lesson. Will you marry me?" Maya said yes. And when she did, she felt her father's presence again, warm and proud and so happy. They got married 6 months later in a small, private ceremony. No reporters, no spectacle, just family, friends, and people who loved them for who they were. It was perfect. It was everything Marcus's courthouse wedding wasn't. It was real. And when Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, Maya realized something powerful. Her father had been right. Character mattered more than cash. Love mattered more than luxury. And the people who stayed when you had nothing were the ones who deserved everything. Years passed. Robin grew up strong, smart, and kind, just like her grandfather. She knew her biological father existed but wanted nothing to do with him. Daniel was her dad, the man who showed up, the man who loved her unconditionally. Marcus sent letters occasionally. Birthday cards Robin never opened. Apologies no one read. He was a ghost, a memory, a lesson in what not to be. And Maya, she built an empire of kindness. The foundation grew. The community centers multiplied. She changed millions of lives. And every single time she approved a grant, cut a ribbon, or held a child who'd been helped by her father's money, she whispered the same thing. "This one's for you, Dad. This one's for you." What do you think happened to Vanessa? And is there any way Marcus could ever redeem himself? Let me know what you think, because we're not done yet. Vanessa's story didn't have a happy ending either. In fact, it might have been worse than Marcus's. After she left him for a man she thought had money, she discovered 3 months into that relationship that he was broke too. Worse than broke. Drowning in debt, faking a lifestyle he couldn't afford. She jumped from one sinking ship to another, and by the time she realized it, she was 32, single, and had burned every bridge she'd ever built. No one wanted to be around her. Friends who'd watched her manipulate Marcus, who'd seen her cruelty toward Maya, wanted nothing to do with her. "You're toxic," one of them told her bluntly. "You destroyed a pregnant woman's life for fun. And now you're mad because it didn't work out for you? That's not how karma works, Vanessa." She tried to rebuild. "I tried to find someone new." But every time she met someone promising, they'd Google her name and find the articles, the blogs, the Reddit threads dissecting her role in Marcus and Maya's divorce. She'd become infamous. The villain in a viral story. The mistress who helped destroy a marriage and got nothing in return. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see how karma really works, because this is just the beginning. She moved to a different city, trying to escape her reputation. But the internet doesn't forget. People recognized her, whispered about her, judged her. She got fired from 2 jobs because her presence made clients uncomfortable. She couldn't date, couldn't make friends, couldn't move forward. She was stuck in the consequences of her choices, and there was no way out. One night, she sat alone in her tiny apartment, scrolling through Maya's Instagram. The foundation, the community centers, the awards, the happy family photos with Daniel and Robin. Everything Vanessa had tried to steal was now Maya's in a way she could never touch. And the worst part, Vanessa knew it was her fault. She couldn't even blame Marcus. She'd been the one who pursued him. She'd been the one who whispered poison in his ear, convincing him that Maya wasn't enough. She'd been the one who smiled at a grieving woman and felt victorious. And now she was paying for it. Every single day, she thought about reaching out to Maya, apologizing, trying to make it right. But what would she even say? "Sorry, I helped destroy your marriage while your dad was dying." There were no words big enough to fix what she'd done. So she lived with it. And it ate her alive. Marcus, meanwhile, hit what he thought was rock bottom, only to discover there were deeper levels of misery waiting. He developed depression so severe he couldn't get out of bed most days. He saw a therapist who told him bluntly, "You're grieving the life you destroyed. And the only way through it is to accept that you did this to yourself. No one else. You." That was hard to hear. Harder to accept. But it was true. He'd made every single choice that led him here. And no amount of self-pity would change it. He tried to be a better person. I volunteered at a homeless shelter. Donated what little money he had to charity. Tried to live the way Maya's father had lived, humbly, kindly, selflessly. But it felt hollow. Like he was trying to buy forgiveness from a universe that didn't care. One day, he saw Maya and Daniel at a park with Robin. They were laughing, playing, and being a family. He watched from a distance, hidden behind a tree like a creep, and felt a pain so deep he thought he might die from it. That should have been him. That should have been his life. Robin looked so much like him, it was startling. Same nose, same smile. But she had Maya's eyes. Kind eyes. Eyes that would never look at him with love, because he didn't deserve it. He thought about walking over, introducing myself, asking for a chance. But he knew what would happen. Daniel would step in front of them protectively. Maya would tell him to leave. Robin would hide behind her mom, scare the stranger. So he stayed hidden. Watched for 5 more minutes. Then I walked away. Because that's all he could do. Years went by. Marcus got a little better. Not happy, but functional. He worked a decent job. Paid his bills. Stayed sober. Stayed alone. He didn't date. Didn't try. What was the point? He'd already had the love of his life and thrown her away. No one else would ever compare. On Robin's 10th birthday, he sent a card. Inside was a check for $100, all he could afford, and a note that said, "I know I don't deserve to be part of your life, but I want you to know I think about you every day. I'm proud of you even though I have no right to be. I hope you're happy. I hope you're loved. I hope you never make the mistakes I did. Happy birthday, Robin. Love, your biological father, Marcus." Robin opened the card, read it, and handed it to Maya. "Mom, why does this man keep sending me stuff?" Maya looked at the card, her face unreadable. Then she tore up the check, threw the card away, and said gently, "Because he regrets his choices. But regret doesn't earn a relationship, sweetheart. Your dad is Daniel, the man who chose us every single day. The man who showed up. That's what matters." Robin nodded and went back to her birthday party, surrounded by friends and family who loved her. Marcus's card went in the trash where it belonged. But Marcus didn't know that. He thought maybe, just maybe, it would mean something. That Robin would think about him. That Maya would see he was trying. But the truth was, they'd moved on completely. He was a ghost. A non-entity. And that was exactly what he deserved. The only person who hadn't moved on was Marcus himself. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, serving a life sentence with no possibility of parole. One day, he ran into Harold Chun at a coffee shop, completely by accident. Harold recognized him immediately. "Marcus," he said coolly, not offering a handshake. "Harold," Marcus replied, his voice barely above a whisper. They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Marcus said, "How is she?" "Maya. How is she doing?" Harold's expression softened, but only slightly. "She's doing better than you could ever imagine. She's happy, successful, loved. She's everything your doubt said she couldn't be." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "Good. That's good. She deserves it." Harold studied him for a moment. "You know, Robert knew you'd leave. He saw it coming months before it happened. He told me you didn't have the character to stay when things got hard. I didn't want to believe him. But he was right." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. He really said that. He did. And he made sure Maya would be protected when you inevitably proved him right. You didn't just lose a wife, Marcus. You lost the respect of a man who could see right through you. Harold walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the coffee shop, feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. Because hearing that Robert had known, had predicted it, had planned for it, made it all so much worse. He hadn't just failed Maya. He'd failed a test he didn't even know he was taking. And he'd failed spectacularly. That night, Marcus wrote a letter. Not to Maya, not to Robin, but to Robert, even though he was gone. He wrote about his regret, his shame, his wish that he could go back and do it differently. He wrote until his hand cramped, until tears blurred the words, until he'd said everything he needed to say. Then he burned the letter. Because what good would it do? Robert was dead. Maya had moved on. Robin didn't know him. Vanessa hated him. His family was disappointed in him. He was alone, and he would stay alone, because that's what happens when you choose wrong. When you value the temporary over the eternal. When you trade love for lust and character for convenience. You lose everything, and you deserve it. But here's the thing. Maya's story didn't end with revenge or bitterness. It ended with something much more powerful. Something that would define her legacy forever. What did Maya do that changed everything? And how did her father's final lesson come full circle in a way no one saw coming? On what would have been her father's 70th birthday, Maya stood in front of a crowd of 10,000 people at the opening of the 5th Robert Richardson Community Center. This one was special. It was built in the town where her father grew up, where he'd lived in poverty, where he'd dreamed of a better life. The building stood tall and proud, a symbol of everything he'd overcome and everything he'd become. But more than that, it was a symbol of what he'd taught her, that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. Maya had done something unexpected. She'd invited Marcus. Not because she forgave him, not because she wanted him back, but because she wanted him to see what real love looked like, what real legacy meant, what he'd walked away from. Harold had hand-delivered the invitation with a note. Your daughter will be here. You're welcome to attend. But you will not approach her. You will not speak to her. You will observe from a distance and understand what you lost. If you can handle that, come. If you can't, stay away. Marcus came. He stood in the back of the crowd, wearing the best suit he could afford, which still looked cheap compared to everyone else there. He watched Maya on stage, confident and radiant, holding a microphone like she was born to do this. Robin stood beside her, now 12 years old, tall and beautiful, and so much like him it hurt. Daniel stood on Maya's other side, his hand on her back, supportive and proud. The family Marcus should have had. The life he should have lived. What would you do if you were in Marcus's position? Would you have shown up or stayed away? Comment below because I really want to know. Maya began to speak. My father taught me 3 things, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. 1. Love is the only currency that matters. 2. Character is the only treasure that lasts. And 3. The way you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about who you really are. She paused, her eyes sweeping the crowd, landing briefly on Marcus before moving on. He felt his heart stop. She knew he was there. My father spent 35 years pretending to be poor so I could learn those lessons. And I hated it. I was embarrassed by his car, his clothes, his job. I wanted him to be more. But now I understand. He was already more. He was everything. And the people who couldn't see that, the people who judged him, dismissed him, underestimated him, they missed out on knowing one of the greatest men who ever lived. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya smiled, tears in her eyes. This center represents his heart, his belief that everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves to be seen. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure his legacy lives on. More applause, more tears. And Marcus, standing in the back, felt something break inside him that had been barely holding together. He'd missed it. He'd missed all of it. He'd been so focused on what Robert didn't have that he never saw what he did have. Integrity, wisdom, love, purpose. Everything Marcus lacked. After the ceremony, Marcus watched from a distance as people swarmed Maya, thanking her, hugging her, telling her how the foundation had changed their lives. He saw Robin laugh at something Daniel said, saw the way she looked at him with pure adoration. He saw Maya kiss her husband, a kiss full of love and trust and partnership. And he realized something devastating. He wasn't needed. He wasn't missed. He was irrelevant. A footnote. Ako shonari tale. Nothing more. He started to leave, but Harold appeared beside him. You came, Harold said not unkindly. I did, Marcus replied, his voice hollow. Did it help? Seeing this? Marcus thought about it. No, he said honestly. It made it worse, because now I can see exactly how much I lost. and there's nothing I can do about it. Harold nodded slowly. Good. That's the point. Robert wanted you to understand the weight of your choices. He wanted you to live with it. Marcus looked at Harold, his eyes red. He really hated me, didn't he? No, Harold said softly. He pitied you. He saw you as a small man making small choices. He didn't hate you. He just knew you'd never be enough for his daughter. And he made sure she'd be okay without you. That hurt more than hate ever could. Marcus nodded, unable to speak, and walked away. He didn't look back. He couldn't. It hurt too much. But what Marcus didn't know was that Maya had watched him leave. She'd seen him standing in the back. She'd seen the pain on his face. And for the first time in years, she felt something unexpected. Not anger, not hatred, but a strange, distant pity. He'd lost everything because he'd chosen poorly. And she'd gained everything because she'd been loved well. That was the difference. That was the lesson. Her father had made sure she understood that love wasn't about what someone gave you. It was about what they sacrificed for you, what they built for you, what they taught you. That night, Maya sat in her home office, looking at a photo of her father. I miss you, Dad, she whispered. Every single day. But I get it now. I understand why you did what you did. You wanted me to know my worth. And I do. I finally do. She opened her laptop and started typing. She was writing a book, a memoir. The story of her father, his secret life, and the lessons he'd taught her. She wanted the world to know about Robert Richardson, not the billionaire, the father, the man, the legend. The book would become a bestseller. It would inspire millions. It would cement her father's legacy in a way money never could. And when it was published, Maya would dedicate it with these words, "To my father, who taught me that the richest life is the one spent loving others. And to my daughter, Robin, who will carry that lesson forward. And to everyone who's ever been underestimated, dismissed, or forgotten, your worth is not determined by what you have. It's determined by who you are. Never forget that." Marcus would read that book years later. He'd sit alone in his apartment, now in his 50s, still single, still haunted, and read every word. He'd cry through most of it. He'd see himself in the villain of the story, the man who failed the test, the man who chose wrong. And he'd finally accept what he'd known for years but hadn't fully internalized. He was that man. He'd always be that man. And there was no redemption arc coming. Some mistakes are too big to fix. Some choices define you forever. But Maya? She was thriving. The foundation has helped over 1 million families. She'd been featured in Forbes, Time, and People. She'd given a TED Talk that went viral. She'd raised Robin to be kind, strong, and compassionate. She'd built a marriage with Daniel that was everything a partnership should be. She'd honored her father's memory in every possible way. And she'd proven that pain, when transformed, becomes power. Years later, Robin would ask her, "Mom, do you ever think about my biological father?" Maya would consider the question carefully. Sometimes, she'd say honestly, but not with anger. "I think about him as a lesson. A reminder of what happens when you confuse excitement with love. When you choose what feels good over what is good. Your grandfather taught me that. And I'm teaching you." Robin would nod, wise beyond her years. "I'm glad Daniel's my dad. He chose us. That matters." "It matters more than anything," Maya would agree. And they'd leave it at that. Because some stories don't need closure. Some people don't deserve space in your thoughts. And some lessons are best learned by watching from a distance what happens when you choose wrong. Do you think Marcus ever had a chance at redemption? Or was he too far gone from the moment he walked out? Let me know what you think. 20 years later, Robin Richardson stood at a podium, now 32 years old, addressing a crowd at the annual Robert Richardson Foundation Gala. She was the foundation's new director, having taken over from her mother, who now served as chairman of the board. Robin looked so much like her grandfather, it was uncanny. Same eyes, same smile, same unshakable kindness. She'd grown up hearing stories about him. About the janitor who was secretly a billionaire. About the man who taught her mother that character matters more than cash. "My grandfather died before I was born," Robin began, her voice steady and strong. "But I feel like I know him, because I see him with my mother. I see him in the lives we've changed. I see him in the community centers that bear his name. I see him in the legacy he left behind. He proved that wealth isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you give away. And that's the mission of this foundation. To give, to serve, to lift others up. If you've been following this story, hit subscribe, because you won't believe where it goes next. The crowd applauded. Maya sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face, so proud of her daughter she could barely breathe. Daniel squeezed her hand. Robert would be so proud, he whispered. He'd be proud of both of you. Maya nodded, unable to speak. In the back of the room, someone unexpected watched the ceremony. Marcus, now in his 60s. Gray hair, tired eyes, still alone, still carrying the weight of choices made 30 years ago. He hadn't been invited. He'd bought a ticket under a fake name. He'd come because he needed to see her. Robin, his daughter, the one who'd never known him, never wanted to know him. He watched her speak with a mixture of pride and unbearable sadness. She was extraordinary, brilliant, compassionate, everything he wasn't, and she'd become that without him. Despite him, because he'd never been there. After the speech, Robin stepped off the stage and was immediately surrounded by admirers. Marcus stayed in shadows watching. He didn't approach, didn't try to introduce himself. He just wanted to see her, to know she was okay, to confirm what he already knew, that she didn't need him, had never needed him. He turned to leave, but a voice stopped him. "You're Marcus, aren't you?" He spun around. It was Harold Chun, now in his 80s, moving slower but still sharp as ever. "Harold," Marcus said quietly, "I didn't think you'd still be alive." "Stubborn old men like me don't die easy," Harold said with a slight smile. "What are you doing here?" Marcus hesitated. I wanted to see her. Robin, just once." Harold studied him for a long moment. "She doesn't know you're here, does she?" "No, and I'm not going to tell her. I just needed to see that she's okay, that she's happy, that she turned out all right without me." Harold's expression softened. "She's more than all right. She's extraordinary, but you already knew that." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "I should go." "Wait," Harold said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Robert left something for you. He instructed me to give it to you if you ever came to one of these events. He figured you might eventually, out of guilt or curiosity or whatever's eating at you." Marcus stared at the envelope, shocked. "He left me something? Why?" "Because despite everything, Robert believed people should know the truth. Read it when you're alone. It'll hurt, but maybe that's what you need." Harold handed him the envelope and walked away, leaving Marcus standing there, holding a letter from a dead man who'd seen right through him 30 years ago. Marcus left the gala immediately, went back to his small apartment, and sat down at his kitchen table. His hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, dated 3 days before Robert died. Marcus began to read. "Marcus, if you're reading this, it means you came to see Robin. Probably from a distance. Probably filled with regret. Good. You should feel regret. You made the worst decision of your life when you walked away from my daughter. But I'm not writing this to punish you. I'm writing this to set you free. You've spent 30 years hating yourself, wondering what if, wishing you could go back. But you can't. And that's the point. Life doesn't give do-overs. It gives consequences. You chose excitement over commitment, lust over love, the shiny new thing over the treasure you already had, and you lost everything because of it. But here's the truth I want you to understand. Maya didn't need you to be happy. Robin didn't need you to be extraordinary. They were always going to be fine, because I made sure of it. Not with money, though that helped, but with love, with lessons, with the kind of foundation that money can't buy. You were never essential to their story, Marcus. You were a test, a lesson, a cautionaritale, and they passed the test by moving on without you. So stop torturing yourself. Stop sending cards and letters that no one reads. Stop watching from the shadows like a ghost. Let them go. Really, truly let them go. And maybe, just maybe, you can finally let yourself go too. You'll never be their family, but you can stop being your own worst enemy. Live whatever life you have left with some dignity, some integrity, some of the characters you should have had 30 years ago. It's not too late to be a decent man. It's just too late to be their man. And that's something you'll have to live with. But at least live. Robert Richardson. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Then he set it down, put his head in his hands, and wept. Not the bitter, angry tears of regret, but the exhausted, releasing tears of someone finally accepting the truth. Robert was right. He'd spent 30 years punishing himself, and it hadn't changed anything. It hadn't brought Maya back. It hadn't earned Robin's love. It had just made him miserable. Maybe it was time to stop. Maybe it was time to let go. Not because he deserved peace, but because holding on was killing him. The next day, Marcus did something he hadn't done in decades. He went to therapy. Real therapy. Not the half-hearted attempts of the past, but genuine, deep work. He started unpacking his choices, his patterns, his failures. It was painful, brutal, but necessary. And slowly, very slowly, he started to change. Not for Maya, not for Robin, but for himself. He volunteered more. He helped people. He lived modestly, humbly, trying to emulate the man Robert had been. He stopped sending cards, stopped watching from a distance, stopped hoping for something that would never happen. And one day, years later, he realized something. He was okay. Not happy, not fulfilled, but okay. He'd found a kind of peace in accepting that his role in Maya and Robin's story was to be the villain who taught them what not to accept. And if that was his legacy, then so be it. Some people are meant to be warnings, and he'd be the best warning he could be. But Maya's story, her story was still being written, and it was far from over. What do you think? Can someone like Marcus ever truly redeem themselves? Or are some mistakes too big to come back from? Maya Richardson sat in her late father's office, the one she'd preserved exactly as he'd left it, and opened a file she'd never seen before. Harold had given it to her on her 60th birthday with a simple instruction. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough to understand it fully. Inside was a series of letters. Letters her father had written to her throughout her entire life, but never sent. Letters he'd planned for her to find after he was gone. She read them one by one, tears streaming down her face. Letters from when she was born. Today, I held you for the first time, and I made a promise. I will protect you from everything except the lessons you need to learn. I will love you unconditionally, but I will not shield you from consequences. Because the greatest gift I can give you is wisdom, not comfort. Letters from her teenage years. You asked me today why we don't have a nicer car. Why don't we live in a bigger house? I wanted to tell you the truth, but I couldn't. Not yet. Someday you'll understand that I'm teaching you to measure wealth by what matters, not by what shows. And then a letter written just days before he died, after he'd seen Marcus pulling away. Maya, my beautiful girl, I see what's coming. I see him leaving. And it's breaking my heart because I can't protect you from this pain. But I can prepare you for what comes after. When he leaves, you will feel destroyed. You will question everything. But I need you to remember, his choice to leave says nothing about your worth and everything about his character. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are not too much or not enough. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. And when the dust settles, when you see what I've left you, I need you to use it to prove something to yourself and to the world, that the measure of a person is not what they're born with, but what they build with what they're given. Build something beautiful, Maya. Build something that matters. Build something that will outlive us both. I believe in you. I always have. Even when you didn't believe in yourself. Love forever, Dad. Subscribe if you want to see how this story ends, because you're not ready for what's about to happen. Maya closed the file and sat in silence, feeling her father's presence stronger than she had in years. He'd known. He'd seen it all coming. And he'd prepared her for every single moment. Not with money, though that had helped, but with words, with wisdom, with the kind of love that transcends death. She picked up her phone and called Robin. Come over, she said softly. I want to show you something your grandfather left us. An hour later, Maya and Robin sat together in Robert's office, reading the letters. Robin cried. Maya cried. They held each other and grieved for the man they'd both lost and celebrated the man who'd never really left. He was incredible, Robin whispered. I wish I'd known him. You do know him, Maya said, squeezing her daughter's hand. He's in everything we do, every person we help, every life we change. He's still here. He'll always be here. They spent hours in that office, reading and talking and remembering. And when they finally left, they both felt something shift. a deeper understanding of the legacy they were carrying, a deeper commitment to the mission Robert had started. They would continue his work. They would honor his memory. And they would make sure the world never forgot the janitor who became a billionaire not because he wanted wealth, but because he wanted to teach his daughter that character is the only treasure that matters. The foundation grew even larger. Under Robin's leadership, it expanded internationally, helping families in 50 countries. The community centers multiplied to 25 locations. The scholarship program sent 100,000 kids to college. And every single recipient was told the story of Robert Richardson, the man who proved that where you start doesn't determine where you finish. That love is the only currency that matters. That the way you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about who you really are. Maya lived to see it all. She watched her daughter become a force for good in the world. She watched her grandchildren grow up kind, humble, and compassionate. She watched Daniel grow old beside her, still holding her hand after 40 years of marriage. And she knew, deep in her soul, that her father would be proud. On Maya's 80th birthday, Robin organized a tribute event. Thousands of people came. People whose lives had been changed by the foundation. People who'd been helped by Robert's money and Maya's vision. One by one, they stood up and shared their stories. Single moms who'd gotten childcare so they could finish school. Dads who'd gotten job training and turned their lives around. Kids who'd gotten scholarships and became doctors, teachers, engineers. Each story was a testament to Robert's belief that everyone deserves a chance. That everyone deserves dignity. That everyone matters. Maya sat on stage, overwhelmed by the love in the room, and realized something powerful. Her father's wealth had mattered, yes. But wasn't the money that changed lives. It was the heart behind it. The intention. The love. That's what made the difference. At the end of the event, Robin gave a speech that brought the room to tears. My grandfather once said that character is the only treasure that lasts. And my mother proved him right. She took unimaginable pain and turned it into purpose. She took betrayal and turned it into a movement. She took loss and turned it into a legacy. And that, more than any dollar amount, is what defines the Richardson family. We don't measure wealth by what we have. We measure it by what we give. And we've given everything because that's what love does. It gives. It sacrifices. It builds. And it never ever quits. The room erupted in applause. Maya stood, tears streaming, and hugged her daughter. "Thank you," she whispered, "for carrying this forward, for making him proud, for being everything I hoped you'd be." "I learned from the best," Robin whispered back. And in that moment, 3 generations of love, sacrifice, and purpose came together in the most beautiful way possible. Robert's legacy wasn't just alive. It was thriving, and it would continue long after Maya was gone. But there was one more chapter to this story. One final twist that no one saw coming. One that would bring everything full circle in the most unexpected way. What do you think that final twist could be? Drop your thoughts in the comments because the ending is going to shock you. 5 years after Maya's 80th birthday tribute, she received an unexpected letter. It was delivered by a lawyer she'd never met, representing the estate of Marcus Carter. Marcus had died 2 weeks earlier, alone in his apartment, from a heart attack. He was 68 years old. The letter was brief. "Ms. Richardson, as per Mr. Carter's final wishes, I am writing to inform you that he has left his entire estate to the Robert Richardson Foundation. It is not a large sum, approximately $47,000, but it represents every penny he had saved over the last 30 years. He also left a letter for you. I have enclosed it with this correspondence. My condolences for any pain this may cause. Sincerely, Thomas Brennan, attorney at law." Maya sat in stunned silence, holding the letter from Marcus. She hadn't thought about him in years. Hadn't wondered if he was alive or dead. He'd become a distant memory, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. But now, holding his final words, she felt something unexpected. Not anger, not bitterness, but a deep, sad curiosity. She opened the letter. "Dear Maya, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to care. I don't even expect you to remember me beyond the pain I caused. But I'm writing this anyway because I need to say things I should have said 35 years ago. I was wrong. About everything. I was selfish, cowardly, and blind. I walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid to see what I had. Your father saw through me. He knew I'd fail, and he made sure you'd be okay without me. I've spent 35 years living with that, watching from a distance as you built an extraordinary life, as Robin grew into an extraordinary woman, as you proved that you never needed me. And that was the hardest truth to accept. Not that I lost you, but that you were always going to be fine. Better than fine. You were always going to be extraordinary, with or without me. I spent my entire life trying to make up for what I did. I volunteered. I helped people. I lived humbly. I tried to be the man your father was. But I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. And I want you to know that I never stopped regretting what I did. Not for a single day. I'm leaving everything I have to your foundation. It's not much, but that's all I have. And I wanted to help people the way your father helped people. The way you've helped people. Maybe in some small way, it can be a form of repentance. A way of saying, I finally understand the lesson your father tried to teach me. That character is the only treasure that lasts. I didn't have much character when I knew you, but I've spent 35 years trying to build some. I hope I succeeded. Even a little. I hope you're happy, Maya. I hope Robin is happy. I hope your life has been everything you deserved. And I hope someday you can think of me without pain. Just as a lesson learned. A mistake corrected. A man who finally understood too late. I'm sorry for everything. Truly. Marcus. Maya read the letter twice, tears streaming down her face. Not because she forgave him. Not because it changed anything. But because it was so profoundly sad. He'd spent 35 years trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Trying to earn something he'd already lost forever. And in the end, all he had to show for it was $47,000 and a letter full of regret. She showed the letter to Robin, who read it in silence. How do you feel? Robin asked carefully. Maya thought about it. Sad, she said finally. Not for me. For him. He wasted his entire life punishing himself for one terrible choice. And nothing he did brought him peace. Do you forgive him? Robin asked. Maya shook her head slowly. Forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you give. And I can't give him that. But I can accept his apology. I can accept that he tried in his own broken way to be better. And I can honor his final wish by using his money to help people. That feels right. Robin nodded. Grandpa would agree with that. Maya smiled. Yeah. He would. The $47,000 was added to the foundation's endowment with a small plaque that read, in memory of Marcus Carter, who learned too late that character is the only treasure that lasts. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was closed. And sometimes that's enough. Maya lived 5 more years after that. She died peacefully in her sleep at 85, surrounded by family, having lived a life of purpose, love, and impact. Her funeral was attended by thousands. People whose lives she'd changed. People who'd been inspired by her story. People who understood that her greatest legacy wasn't the money she gave away, but the lessons she taught. Robin gave the eulogy, her voice strong despite the tears. My mother taught me that pain doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. It can transform you. It can become the fuel for something beautiful. She took the worst day of her life and turned it into a movement that changed the world. And she did it because her father taught her that love is the only currency that matters. That character is the only treasure that lasts. That the way you treat people when they have nothing tells you everything about who you really are. The foundation continued. Generation after generation. Robin's children took over after her. Then their children. The Richardson legacy became a symbol of what's possible when wealth is paired with purpose. When money is used as a tool for good. When character is valued above all else. And somewhere in whatever comes after this life, Robert Richardson watched his family carry forward the mission he'd started in a tiny apartment 90 years ago. The mission to prove that love matters more than luxury. That kindness matters more than cash. That the way you live is more important than what you leave behind. Marcus's story became a footnote in the foundation's history. A cautionary tale told to new employees and scholarship recipients. A reminder that choices have consequences, that character matters, that the people you love when you have nothing are the ones who deserve everything, and that some mistakes are too big to fix, but never too big to learn from. Years later, a journalist writing a book about the Richardson Foundation interviewed dozens of people who'd been helped by the organization. At the end of every interview, they asked the same question: what do you think Robert Richardson would say if he could see what his legacy has become? The answers were always the same. He'd say it was never about the money. It was always about love. And they were right. Because in the end, that's all that matters. That's all that lasts. That's the only treasure worth having. Love, character, purpose. The three things Robert Richardson valued above all else. The three things he passed down to his daughter. The three things that changed the world. And as for Maya, she died knowing she'd honored her father's memory in every possible way. She died knowing she'd turned her pain into purpose. She died knowing she'd built something that would outlive her by generations. She died knowing she was loved, valued, and remembered not for what she had, but for who she was. And that, more than any dollar amount, is the greatest wealth of all. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about wealth, character, and what really matters in life, subscribe to this channel. Because stories like this, stories that challenge you and inspire you and remind you what it means to be human, are what we do here. Drop a comment telling me what you learned from Maya's journey. And remember, your worth is not determined by what you have. It's determined by who you are. Never forget that.